And I think we are in business. Can I just get a thumbs up from colleagues that you can hear me? Okay, awesome. All right, so without further ado, I am going to proceed with this afternoon session so that we can get back to our daily tasks after this. So as I said, welcome to this masterclass, the first masterclass for the year. In this masterclass, we will be dealing with primarily feedback from assessment 1 for the modules FOR5905, 5906, 5907, and 5908. Not all of the lecturers were able to join, as some of them had other engagements, but we are fortunate enough to at least have the majority of the lecturers here. So before I proceed, let me just introduce the various lecturers, because some of you may not know who we are and what we look like. So the module leader for FOR5905 is Professor van Graan. That is the gentleman on the left. And there is his email address. The primary lecturer for FOR5906 is Dr. Lakubu. That is him on the right. And there is his, there is his email address. I want to encourage everybody, please make sure that when you are engaging with your respective lecturers, that number one, you have the correct lecturer for the correct module code, and number two, that you make use of your MyLife email account when communicating with your lecturers. Then the module leaders for FOR5907, that's myself on the left, Professor Benson, and there is my email address, and then Professor Horn, who is the module leader for FOR5908, and there is her email address. So I'm using the term module leader or primary lecturer. This basically means that these are the people who are responsible for the tuition and the marking and your development throughout the year. But remember, we can only provide you with guidelines and tools. It's up to you to actually implement the guidelines we are giving you. So feedback today, or topics for discussion today, what we will be dealing with. Our discussion today is going to be guided by the following elements. This is based on a collective overview of where the majority of the errors or mistakes were made in assessment 1. So we will deal with each bullet point as an individual item. And once we are done, we're going to invite questions from the group about these elements, and we will make recommendations for improvements. Please bear in mind, we will make recommendations for improvements. We are not here to do your work for you. All of us have PhDs. We've done this many years ago. So what we can do is we can provide guidance. It's up to you to go and work and read and work through and look at other examples and then refine what it is that you are going to do. It is vital that you amend whatever was highlighted as incorrect or inaccurate or skewed by the marker or the lecturer. Otherwise, you are going to fail this module. Assessment 1 or assignment 1 forms the foundation of what it is that you are going to build assignment or assessment 2 on. Once we are done with the overall feedback of assessment 1, thereafter we've just done in-text referencing, we will then discuss the way forward of what will be expected of you for assessment 2. But before we do that, it's important that you understand and that you are aware of how the module slots in and how it dovetails and how your assessments are going to be handled. This is reflected usually in your first tutorial letter, but we found that one doesn't always understand something when you simply read it for the first time. So let's pause and take a moment and look at how assessments fit into place. Your assessment on this, in these modules, are all designed to scaffold. So like you have the image on the right, first step, second step, third step, fourth step, you can't get to the fourth step if you skip step 1, 2, and 3. You can't get to step 3 by skipping step 2 and jumping from 1 to 3. You have to follow the sequential process. So you use the first assessment to build your second assessment, which will be assessed and returned to you like assessment 1. You then use the comments made by the markers to build the second assessment, which is marked and returned to you with comments and improvements. You use these to then draft assignment 3, which will be your exam. I see that I have left the supplementary at the bottom there. And at this time, there will be no supplementary for your group. So in 2023, this was continued, and this was the last opportunity that the students had to make amendments or to have a supplementary. But your group will not have a supplementary. So you will have assignment 1, assignment 2, and assignment 3, which will be your exam. Okay, so what is the purpose of a well-defined topic or title? Because that is where you were expected to begin. And one may wonder, but why is it so important to have a well-defined topic or a well-defined title? And you would have noticed, especially if you have either all 4 of these modules or perhaps only 2 of these modules, you will have noticed that each of your assessment ones had to have a specific topic or title. I'm not sure how many of you engaged with FOR 5907, the lesson that I designed for the formulation or the drafting of assessment 1, and how important the topic and the title is. But I must be honest with you. I'm disappointed at the level of or the quality of work I got in assignment 1, for the simple reason that it was clear that the majority of the students, yes, the majority of the students, either simply just ignored the guidelines that I gave for assignment 1, or they read it and thought, oh no, I'm going to do my own thing. And that's when it shoots you in the foot. So for a topic or a title to be effective, there has to be certain components. In assignment 2, you are going to be using this topic or title. And in some cases, you had to amend it for assignment 2. But please note, for FOR 5905, 5906, 5907, 5908, you cannot have the same topic or title. FOR 5905 goes about different forensic methods and techniques, so you can choose any technique in any crime type. FOR 5906 is about advanced crime intelligence, so you can use any crime type, but your method to address it has to be an intelligence type method or strategy. FOR 5907, there you had to specify and work on specifically white collar crimes. And FOR 5908, you had to go work specifically on serious and violent crimes. So your topic has to consist of 3 elements. Number 1 at the bottom, an action word. So in other words, a critical assessment or a discussion or a critical evaluation of, and then a crime type, and then corruption. Corruption is so broad. Femicide, gender-based violence. we were receiving topics for which there is nothing in the criminal law canon. So yes, the common vernacular out there might be to talk about vehicle robberies, which is in actual fact a hijacking, or femicide, which is actually murder of a female victim. And then your crime type is not accurately defined. So make sure that whatever it is you are focusing on, that you are not using the kitchen English in inverted commas of what's reported on in media, but that you are accurate in terms of the focus of your study. And then you have to have a method or technique that you are going to use to address the crime type. So for example, a critical evaluation of facial recognition to address human trafficking. Then I wonder by myself, and then I read the problem statement, and then the focus is in South Africa. Now, we must remember that this is a dissertation of limited scopes qualification that you are registered for. So these 4 modules are aimed at helping prepare you for your dissertation. So what we are teaching you here, and what you a lot of the skills you should have had already coming into this qualification, is what we are trying to teach you is to critically evaluate what it is that you are saying. Because what you are saying at the end of the day is going to be measured. And it doesn't help you say one thing, but you mean something else. You have to be crystal clear on what it is that you are going to do. Out of your topic flows the research problem. In a research space, it is vital that the reader knows and understands what you are busy with. How will the reader know this if you don't tell the reader? So you must place your reader into the space that you are going to be arguing from or talking from. How does your reader know what you mean by the term research problem if you do not tell them what a research problem is? And more often than not, this is one of the challenges that we had in terms of assignment 1. Now, vital to this is the use of research methodology literature. Now, we've given you a great number of examples, but you would have noticed that some of those examples are old. 2001, 2005, 2007, and then comes your assignment and you use a 2001 reference and we tell you, not older than 3 years. So yes,
Okay, we're just going to hold on for a few seconds. It seems like Prof. Benson is just off the platform. May I ask all the students in the meanwhile, while we await Prof. Benson to come back, can you hear me? Johan? Just by means of a thumbs up, anyone?
Yes, we can, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, maybe can I ask all the students just in our chat platform to indicate for me which modules are you taking this year, whether it's FOR 5908 5 and 6, 7 and 8, or just 7, 5907, just 5908. Just indicate in the chat form. Just put your student, maybe you can put your student number and your name and just your modules in the chat form. Please, if all of us can do that, that will also help us to prepare for the rest of the presentation. And then I want to say thank you for all the students that's actually attending today. We've got 10 attendees, which is very good. And this, you're using an opportunity to really assist you in progressing, because if you do not do the required corrections on your assessment 1, it will be most difficult to continue with your assessment 2. And as Prof. Benson said at the beginning of this, this workshop today, there is no supplementary examination. So the aim is to help you and to do well in your assessment 2. As your assessment 2 will be marked and assessed, you will get the required feedback, and that you will improve on and submit as your final examination, which will be assessment 3. Remember, no supplementary. So you've got assessment 2 as an opportunity to submit a complete. The better your assessment 2 is and the more complete your assessment 2 is, the better it will be for you to prepare for your examination. I'm just going to mute myself, give you 2 minutes to complete your chat in the chat, and then to complete your modules. Johan, I don't know if there's anything you want to say. I'm just going to give Bernadine a call quickly.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Prof. Benson is back. She will continue with the presentation. Thank you. And thank you also for noting your modules. The students that haven't done so, please continue to do so. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My most sincerest apology. I didn't even realize that I was speaking to myself and that I had lost connection. I honestly don't know what happened. This has never happened to me before. So let me continue with, I think we were here. I think we were here. So let me proceed. I think I was chatting about the research problem and the use of sources, and why sources have to be no older than 10 years. What's important in terms of the sources you select is that you must choose sources that speak or that explain the problem or the aim or the research question in a language that you can understand, and that you are actually going to be doing that. And it's important that you then use those sources and the most recent sources of that author. I'm not sure if I lost you when I was speaking about the source list we've given you, and some of them are older. Please make the effort to go and look for the most updated sources when you are addressing either your research problem or your aim or your questions, whatever the case might be. What's vital also is when you do your research problem is you ground or you base your argument on the most recent events or the most recent statistics. Don't give us 2015 statistics. Don't give us an argument that is 3 years old, because who says that those arguments are still valid and are still happening? I want to hit pause here for a moment quickly, and I want to share an idea with you. So I read an interesting article very recently about copying, about how we discourage our students to copy. And we tell them, no, you mustn't copy. Copy is academic theft. But we don't tell them what it is that they should be copying. Because I'm here today to tell you that in actual fact, you should be copying. But what do I mean by this? When you read research as a young academic or as a young postgrad student, look at the style of the author. Look at the words that the author is using. Look at the referencing. Look at the flow. Look at the approach. These are the things that you should be copying, not the content. So in other words, if you see, yes, this is a nice paragraph, I like the flow, copy the flow. Don't copy the paragraph and then put your own stuff in. That's not going to work, because our Turnitin system is going to flag this. And you might just end up in academic hot water. So I want to reiterate, don't copy the content, but copy the style. It's called learning by doing. Look at how different authors write. Look at how they approach. Look at the arguments when they argue. What are the words they use? When they compare, what are the words they use? Look at the flow. Look at the approach. Look at how their sentences link. That's what I mean by copying. So let's take a look at academic styles quickly. So this is part of an introduction of a very recent PhD. The first statement: crime levels are very high in South Africa, surpassing international averages to the extent that the National Development Plan, and there you see a little one. Now, what this student did, because the NDP might be unknown to external readers, there was in a footnote just a clarification of what the NDP is. Okay. Also alluded to these high crime levels, stating, and look at the quote, social and economic development, okay, in South Africa, this author put in, has been slowed by high crime levels. So she is arguing a position that was made 2012 already. Now, she does unpack this later. She builds on this to say the self-same NDP acknowledges the importance of deploying police officials according to crime patterns and trends. And then she brings in different authors. These authors intimate that the direct and indirect costs of crime to the country and government, are those things among others. So you can see the flow, you can see the referencing, you can see how the author structures the argument. It's not just one sentence after the other and nothing is linked. This is the same author, and in this, she was unpacking the research problem. So Bless, Hickson, Smith, and Sertoli contend that selecting a research problem is a complicated, detailed, and delicate task because there are a variety of queries and uncertainties arising from the environment. So she puts it out there. From those queries, look how it links. Look how it links with the queries. And then from those queries, the researcher should focus only on those that are appropriate for scientific research. And then she grounds that in a source. The research problem could emanate, and then she explains where it could emanate from. And then the purpose of identifying a problem is to acquire more information about an issue or to explain the relationship about existing facts and variables. And then she brings in two sources, a very new one and a little bit older one. Now, we will very quickly see, your lecturers know who are the primary authors in the methodological field. So I'm very happy to see Bless, Hickson, Smith, and Sertoli because those are South African authors and their literature is written for the South African context. Curtis and Curtis, not South African author. Babby and Mouton, Mouton is South African as it gets. And also Mouton is a guru. I would refer to him as a goat in the South African space in terms of research methodology. So I'm very happy to see them. And then the Abuta Benje and Jaradat, that is an unfamiliar source. That's an unfamiliar authors. So I would have been a little bit hesitant to accept just them without the inclusion of Babby and Mouton. So you can see what it is that we are looking for when you draft your research. Just a little bit on the reference list. You have been given a reference guide. I don't know what some of you did with that reference guide. I don't know what you did with it, but a lot of my students in my module simply just ignored the principles and they simply did their own thing. So this is the format of a well-grounded and well-formulated reference list, just the first part of it. Okay. Having said that, let's chat a little bit about the research problem. When thinking about the research problem, what is it that we as your lecturers were looking for? I think all of us gave you guidelines. All of us gave you elements of what had to be addressed in your problem statement. We were looking for the following. What is the problem? Geographically, where is the problem occurring? What is the time frame of the problem? What is the impact of the problem? And what is the importance of the research? That's it. That's it. Some of you got this right beautifully, and your marks show this. Some of the students tried, and here and there's an element. I think some students may have tried to fix South Africa's corruption overnight. That is not going to happen. So you have to focus your research on a small geographic space because you only have a limited amount of pages for chapter 2. Chapter 2 will be the bulk of your research. And you are only going to be doing a literature study. So you are not going to be talking to people. You are not going to be interviewing people. And let me warn you now, if we find in in assignment 2, where you mention research participants, where you mention interviews, where you mention feedback from interviews, that indicates to us that you've copied the text from elsewhere. We do not do interviews. We do not speak to research participants. We do not analyze case dockets. We do pure literature searches and a literature review. Having said that, I want to also quickly just speak about one issue. All of us wear different hats. This is important because in our lives we have different roles. For example, I'm at home here, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a makoti, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. At work, I'm an associate professor, I am an academic, I'm a lecturer, I'm a colleague, and I'm also a friend. So when I'm in this space where I am now speaking to you, I cannot wear a mother hat. I cannot wear a friend hat. I wear the lecturer hat. I'm not your friend. I'm not here to hold your hand, and I'm not here to mollycoddle you. I am your lecturer. I am here to help you, to guide you, to lead you, to direct you. I'm not here to stand behind you and say, Junida, how far have you worked? Junida, have you looked at this yet? So when you are in this role where you are now, what hat are you wearing? Why is this important? Well, from an ethical perspective, this is incredibly important because the majority of our students are either serving members of the SAPs or members who were in the SAPs. And with those positions came certain, beg your pardon, certain privileges. Because you're a SAPS official, you have access to information that the rest of us do not have access to unless we apply for access. And in the research space, it's called the ethical clearance process. Now, when you proceed and you do your dissertation, you will go through the ethical clearance process in which you have to apply to the South African police for access to their people and their information. Just because you're a police official, it does not mean that you can simply access the CAS system and look at information. You cannot do that because then you are overstepping the bounds of ethics. So I want to remind each of us, when we are studying, when all of our students, when you're working on your assessment, you need to take off the police official's hat, the hat of the SIU investigator, the hat of the ESCOM investigator, and you have to put on your student's hat with all the limitations that come with it. This is vital. Once again, I've received problem statements that says the student indicated from viewing case dockets, they noticed this, they noticed that. We are going to get into so much trouble if we do not reprimand students for doing this, because it's overstepping the POPIA Act and it's overstepping the boundaries that the SAPs have put into place for research. Without ethical clearance, you cannot and you may not access any restricted document or person doing this research. Please, please, please don't make yourself guilty of this. Don't overstep. Remember which hat you are wearing. Okay, enough preaching. So we are going to step off the research problem. I just want to remind everybody that the research problem must consist of an explanation of what a research problem is from the methodology, most recent sources, then an explanation. What is the problem? Where is the problem occurring? Time frame, impact, and importance of the research. And remember to focus your research problem. It has to be a direct outflow from your title or your topic, and it has to be specific to the module that you are registered for. Okay, research aim and research question. Similar to the section on the research problem, you have to situate your reader in your space when you discuss the aim of your research. Explain to the reader, using 3 recent sources, what an aim is. Don't tell me what an aim is. And explain to me in the simplest terms from research methodology. This helps me get you on the same page where you are. Now, if your title was a bit skew or totally off the mark, then your aim will also be skew as well as the research question. So at the end of this class today, we're going to be going through the topics, and we're going to help students refine their topics. And based on that, it will be simpler to then design or populate your problem statement and your aim and your research question. So it's important that when you write about what your aim is and what your research question is, keep it simple and keep it linked to what your topic is, and keep it linked to what you are going to do in the space in which you have. You cannot have an aim to say the aim of this research is to find out why police officials are being corrupt at Pretoria Central. That's not going to work, because we are not doing a social work class. We are not doing an ethnography class or an anthropology class or a criminological class. We are looking at forensic methods and techniques in a specific criminal context. And that is where you need to focus on. How do you, once you've structured your aim, how do you position your research question? How do you structure a sound research question? There's a lot of methodology on this. We've given you a lot of guidelines. It means that not all research questions are equal. There's a difference between your primary research question, which is what I'm talking about now, and your list of questions, which we're going to be discussing just now. This is the primary question, that large question for your study. How do you structure this? How do you phrase it? Again, go and look at previous dissertations, previous master's dissertations. Look at how the student structured the research question. Look at the phrasing. Look at how the words are used or not used. Look at what words are used. So let's take a look at, for example, a couple of examples. What is forensic investigation? How effective is DNA analysis to identify a suspect? Can DNA help to identify a murder suspect? What is corruption? These are all examples of effective and less effective primary research questions. And if your primary research question was, for example, what is forensic investigation? It would not be a good example of a primary research question. If your research question was, how effective is DNA analysis to identify a suspect? We're getting there, but I think it can do with some improvement. For example, how effective is touch DNA analysis to identify a suspect of a housebreaking where a firearm is used, for example, and that cuts it down small. Can DNA help to identify a murder suspect? I think any good workbook can help you answer that question. You don't have to do research to answer that question. And then the last one, what is corruption? What is corruption is not a good overall research question. One could ask something like, how can handwriting analysis assist in the identification of tender fraud suspects at the Department of Health in Gauteng, for example? So, big overarching question, addressing all the necessary aspects of your topic or your title. Then we get to the list of questions. Now, in the next section, you have to populate or develop a list of questions that will help you to answer the big question. Be aware that the purpose of these questions is to lead your literature search so that they will in effect be recast into your headings for chapter 2 in assignment 2, but you will not have them as questions. So in other words, if one of your questions in the list of questions is, what is a procurement fraud? Your heading will not be, what is procurement fraud? Your heading could be something like just procurement fraud. There must be a structure to these questions. So begin with a context, let's say crime investigation or forensic investigation. Then you focus on the method, either DNA analysis or facial recognition. And then you go to your crime type, and then you can bring them all together. So what I usually do is I usually draw a mind map for myself, because there must be a link. And you will see from this image that some of the things clustered to the middle of the image will be good, but then there are things that are a little bit in the side, which is interesting, but it's not going to help me address my question at the end of the day. So this is usually what I do. I draw a mind map to guide me in the thinking where I'm going. You can use this also to give you some ideas of how to structure your thinking, how to structure your reasoning. And ultimately, the research aim and the primary research question will guide what you put in here and what you leave out. Remember, there is a page limitation for chapter 2. Between 6 and 10 pages in my module and in Professor Horn's module. I'm not altogether sure in Professor van Graan's module and in Dr. Lekubo's module, but please look at TUT 101. We've given you the layout of the marking and the assessment, and that should give you an indication of your page limitation. Read your guidelines when preparing assessment 2. We tell you what to do, and we'll also give you an indication of how you will be assessed. So in this example, I have, for example, a critic analysis of DNA evidence to identify unknown deceased victims. I could have unpacked it after natural disasters or train accidents in Gauteng. So I have to ask myself, what are the most important questions based on my aim, based on my research question? I could ask, what is criminal investigation? What is forensic investigation? What are the objectives of a forensic investigation? Then I could, for example, ask, what is DNA? How is DNA typed? How is DNA identified? What does DNA contain? How is DNA collected? Then I can look at the unknown victim. What is a victim? What is an unknown victim? What is an unidentified victim? And then obviously your crime type, for example, let's say it's an aircraft disaster or an explosion or a terrorist attack at a local supermarket, and then you will define the crime type. So that's basically how I unpack. And then I focus on what is going to help me answer the question of how can DNA be used to identify the body of an unidentified victim of whatever tragedy or whatever the case might be? So only those sub-questions that help me answer that question directly will make the cut. So if you had to think of your list of questions, to what extent, just ask yourself and reflect, to what extent are those questions, those sub-questions going to help you answer your primary question at the end of the day? And as you think on that, I want to just focus on the evidence. So in the academic space, okay, let's go into an operational environment. When you arrest a suspect and you putting together the docket and you're doing the investigation, you go to court with evidence, and the prosecutor is going to only present, sometimes they present everything and then they wait for the court to say that evidence is not going to be allowed. But more often than not, a clued-up prosecutor will guide you in terms of, or you should know as a detective, what evidence is permissible and what is not. And more often than not, there are sometimes forms of evidence that might at first hand appear admissible, but then under scrutiny in a court of law, the presiding officer might find it not acceptable, and vice versa. So what is all the fuss about? Well, there is a legal maxim that reads, he who alleges must prove. So if you are making certain allegations, for example, the incidents of murder have escalated 150% over the past 3 years in Gauteng or Pretoria Central, you have to give evidence of this. A lot of the statistical data is in open space, so go and look. There will be evidence of crime rates and crime flows that is going on in your space. Use that. If you are saying that corruption at Pretoria Home Affairs branch has increased 300% over the past 3 years, where's the evidence? You have to situate what you are arguing in evidence. And for this, you use references. Now, in-text references are those references you cite in the text. That's what we mean by in-text references. So if I can go back quickly to the example of the academic writing. Okay. Blesson, Higson, Smith, and Sitoli. That is an in-text reference. Now look how the authors are situated when they form part of the sentence. The date and the page number is then in bracket. Then where the authors do not form part of the narrative of the sentence, where you state something and you have the reference at the back, look how they are structured. Now, in your reference guide, you have options. For example, one of the options is the use or the not use of this comma. Select one, use it consistently. The same with the spacing here after the semicolon. In some instances, you have the option to have a space, then you have an option not to use the space. Select one and use it consistently. Here's two sets of authors. We recommend in our referencing guidelines, you arrange your authors, your multiple authors, alphabetically. So the author or the group of authors beginning with A will come first, and the next group will flow after that. So we do not arrange ours chronologically by date, but alphabetically. Okay, so let's go to our reference list and our referencing. Okay. You have to know the rules. And what are these rules? These rules are the School of Criminal Justice 301 tutorial letter that have to be used when you do your referencing. Only this tutorial letter, nothing else. We do not use endnotes. Only in law, in the School of Law, do they use endnotes. We use in-text referencing, and this runs with a reference list, not a bibliography, a reference list. So know the rules. And what is the next step? Follow the rules. It's as simple as that. Now, the majority of you, I think all of you, have reached this phase by coming through a BA degree or a BTech degree, and then an honors degree, and now a master's degree. You have all met these rules. And that's why sometimes we are a little bit confused why it is that all of a sudden you get to our spaces and then this is what you do. You simply throw the rule book out the window. And I think a lot of you, especially in my module, would have seen from your marks that if you do this, your marks will reflect to what extent you did what was asked of you. And that's the bottom line. In an academic space, I don't make the rules. Professor Horn, Professor van Graan, Dr. Lukubu, we don't make the rules. The Department of Higher Education makes the rules. The SOCWA standards make the rules. They determine the rules. We are just there to make sure that the rules are complied with. And folks, if you want smooth sailing, then stick to the rules. Do what is expected of you, do what is asked of you, nothing more. Okay, please. And then this is just a little reprieve. I love cats, so we can just take a quick breather and look at this kitty cat. And this is the student that did exactly what was expected in assignment 1. And now going into assignment 2 will not have major problems. So I'm going to pause here so that we can take some questions about assignment 1, because when we flow out from here, we are going to be discussing assessment 2. Okay, can I get a show from the floor? Do you think we need a quick 5-minute break, a quick body break, just by a show of hands? Okay, I'm going to unmute your mics quickly. Okay. Our first person that wants to ask something, I hope it's about the taking a break. Kholo Losegu. I'm sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly. You can unmute yourself and then speak.
Good afternoon, everybody. No problem.
Hey.
I was just saying, I was just in support of the body break.
Okay, a quick break. Okay. Okay, and I got another thumbs up from somebody else. So let's take a quick 5-minute body break, literally five minutes, and then we're going to come back at my watch now says 13:56. Let's come back at exactly 1 minute past 4. right, so we are back and we are now ready to tackle some of your questions about what we have just addressed. So can I ask that if you have questions, Pololosego, your hand is still up. Is it an old hand or?
Sorry, Prof. It's an old
Not,
hand.
not a problem, not a problem. So I want to invite questions from the floor that we can address, the three lecturers that are here. So I'm going to ask you to raise your hand and then we will take the first three, run through them, next three, run through them. If you are a little bit uncomfortable with the online space, feel free to draft your question in the chat. Okay, any takers, any hands? Okay, I have a hand from Donald. Who else would like to ask something? Donald, don't drop your hand. Keep your hand up. Thank you. Okay. A second question from, okay, I see your hand, student the lady. A third one. Okay, so for now we have two questions. Donald, you may unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good day, everyone.
Hello.
My question will mostly be with regard to formulation of a topic, especially with module 5907. Why I'm saying this, my understanding was I must formulate a topic based on white collar crime, be it fraud, corruption. Then in the event where you say effect of corruption within the subs on service delivery in Gauteng province, is it not well defined or what? Or I must just stick to a topic on corruption only without mentioning within subs and geographical area?
Okay, Donald, what about corruption?
I say the effect of corruption on service delivery within subs in Gauteng province, or is it too broad?
How are you going to find out? Who are you going to, when I say speak to, your literature review? How is that a method or a technique that you are going to use? Where is the method and the technique?
Okay, now I get what you say. So I must define the method or technique that I'm going to use in tackling corruption, say within Ekurhuleni municipality or within SAPS in Gauteng.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. But that's what I wanted to understand.
Donald, break it down even further. If you say corruption, what do you mean? And in SAPS, in the police, do you mean the South African Police Service? Because this is another thing that we get, or Metro, because the term police is very broadly used. But what do we mean? What do we mean? So be sure that you are specific in where it is that you are going to focus and who you are focusing on.
Okay.
All right. Awesome. Okay, Donald, you can lower your hand then and mute yourself.
Okay, thanks. I'm covered.
Okay. Student Teledi, you may unmute yourself.
Good day.
Hello.
Oh. No, I just wanted to ask about on my assignment, especially on 5907. The lecture cancelled out my list of questions, and the list of questions I think is supposed to be the chapters on assignment 2. So my question is, must I still write assignment 2 or I must fix assignment 1 first?
Okay, that's a very, very good question, Mr. Teledi, and thank you for raising that. You will recall that we looked at the scaffolding of the assignments. You cannot go and redo assignment 1. There is no time to redo assignment 1. You must take the comments that the marker gave you or your lecturer gave you, and you must fix assignment 1 without resubmitting it. So if there were problems with your topic, you have to fix or amend or adjust your topic aligned with the guidelines given by the marker and those contained in the guidelines given by your lecturer. Having said that, if we cancel the list of questions, go and look at what was said. Why was the list of questions cancelled or not considered sufficient? And then you must, using the guidelines you got from today, go and look at how you can then better phrase or phrase better sub-questions to address your primary research question.
Okay, I'm answered. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Teledi, you can lower your hand and you can mute yourself. I see we have a question in the chat from Mr. Sianego. Mr. Sianego, for which module code is this? Okay. I'm just going into the grades quickly. If memory serves me correctly, yours was a resubmission where we had to open the system for you to upload the correct document. Okay, yes, all right. You should have feedback within the next day or so. I think I was busy moderating when I had to stop the moderation for this session. So you should have your feedback within the next day or so. My apologies. Okay, we have another hand from, not a problem, Oscar. We have another hand from Mr. Solota. Yes.
Yes, Professor. What I wanted to to get clarity on is in terms of geographical area. Do I need to narrow it down? Say, for instance, if I say Gauteng, is it too broad, or do I need to narrow it down to specific geographical location, like, for instance, Captain Park?
I think that the challenge with a geographic location, it all depends on what your problem is. So if you are basing your argument on let's say the latest statistics on corruption complaints and it's specific to Tshwane, then you cannot situate it in a capital park or Pretoria Central or whatever the case might be. So let the problem that you are basing your research on guide you. Why we want the geographic location is because students want to look at the investigation of corruption in South Africa. That cannot work. Or the impact of money laundering on residents in Limpopo province. We cannot do that. So let the topic and the crime type that you are focusing on guide you. And here I'm going to invite either Professor Horn or Professor van Graan, just their viewpoints on this, because I mean, this is my viewpoint. Anything they would like to add there?
Thank you, Prof. Benson. No, I totally agree with your explanation. let your research problem guide you when you decide on your geographical area. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Horn, I'm assuming that you are concurring with the findings. So let's proceed. Any other questions? Any other burning issues? Donald?
It's with regard to module 5906, man. I'm not sure because I haven't received any correspondence and I've sent emails. If maybe you can check for me. No feedback yet on the assignment. I've got feedback
Okay.
for 3, but on that one, nothing yet. And I've sent, I think, a couple of, because I'm checking in terms of the due date for the next assignment, and it must be improvement of what I already submitted. So I don't know if I'm on the right track on it or not.
Yeah. Sorry, that's 5906. Okay. I think that is Dr. Lukubu's module, if I'm not mistaken. So if can I just ask that all the students who have not yet received feedback for any of the assignments. So in other words, so Donald hasn't received feedback for FOR 5906. Mr. Salota hasn't received feedback for FOR 5907. Please just in the chat, give me your student number and then the module code that you have not received feedback for yet. So that we can just double check what's going on. I already know what's going on with Mr. Sianehu. So let's see if we can get this addressed as soon as possible for you. Thank you, Donald, for raising that. Okay, other questions on assignment 1? Are there no other questions on assignment 1? Okay. Before we proceed, I want to highlight something quickly. I think this is where I want to be. Okay. So this is where I want to be. So this is FOR 5907. Now, I've designed a lesson for assignment 2. I want you to please, and now I'm sharing the wrong screen. Sorry, let me just share the right screen. Timbani, I'll be with you now. I just want to highlight something quickly. Okay. I want to encourage you to please make the effort and work through this lesson. It will help you understand better some of the aspects that you will have to address in assignment 2. And then you may even be able to use that for your other modules. Okay, Timbani, you may unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good afternoon, Prof, and good afternoon, colleagues. Prof, I want to find out whether are there any online classes that are arranged for in future, probably before we submit or just after we submit assignment 2 as assessment 2.
Yes. Okay. Timbani, yes, there will definitely be. I've had a conversation with our subject librarian. He's going to be invited to come and chat with you about the library resources and how to access resources, because a big challenge that some of our students have is their geographic distance to the main library or to a library. And then he will be explaining how students can then access resources online via the library's site. So yes, definitely. And then we will also host a class before the submission or shortly after the submission. It just depends on where we are in the year's planning. for refining, double checking. But then I'm going to reiterate that we will not be checking your assessment 2 before submission. We will be running through the marking sheet. We will be running through the assessment criteria, and we will be highlighting what it is that you must be focusing on and the corrections that were expected in terms of assignment 1 going to assignment 2. It might be after hours. Donald, I note your hand. It might be after hours. So you will have to bear with us because this module is not our only modules, and we have several other modules that we are also catering for. It might also be that we do a pre-recording, which we then just release via the module site. So please do monitor your MyLife emails. If you have a challenge with your MyLife email, sort it out sooner than later, because 1 or 2 of my students last year's MyLife email account was problematic. They didn't sort it out and they missed the due dates for some of the submissions. So please make sure that your MyLife email is working. Yes, Donald.
I wanted to ask, remember, I hear you saying you're not going to discuss the assignment 2. We're not going to submit prior to marking. What I wanted to know, in the event where by one of need to change a topic and I've changed a topic, is it advisable that maybe I can engage you via email to check if I'm on the right track? Not the assignment content per se, but the topic.
Yes, please, Donald, please do that. Please do engage your specific lecturer. If you had to make drastic changes, please do engage your lecturer. We will not be doing pre-marking prior to submission. Okay. But we can guide you. We can provide you with guidance. We can help you in terms of refining before you go forward with your research. I think it's a wise move, Donald. And thank you for clarifying that as well for us.
Okay, no, thanks.
Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? Okay, then I'm going to suggest that we proceed with the presentation. Let me just see where we were. I think we were chatting about assignment 2. Sorry, I just need to get the right slide. Okay. And here we are. Okay, assignment 2 and what is going to be expected of you. Now, Donald did briefly ask about the amount of help you can expect from your lecturer for assignment 2. Now, the guidelines for assessment 2 are on your module site. In other words, so if you go to the assessment shell for assignment 2, your guidelines should already be there in terms of what is expected of you. But I just want to highlight a couple of things. If your module specific guidelines differ, then please focus on what your lecturer tells you. But as far as FOR5907 and 5908, I suspect 5905, the layout is more or less the following. You will have a cover page. The cover page must have specific information, very much the same as assignment 1, but don't write title, colon, and then the title. Student name and surname, colon, and then your name and surname. Just write the title, your name and surname, your student number, your module code, the name of your module. That is it. On the next page, you have to have a table of content. Table of content has to have headings. You're going to have the numbering on the left and then the heading, and then the page number on the right. Now, if your introduction, for example, in chapter 1 runs for 2 pages, in other words, chapter 1, the introduction is on page 1 and 2, then you don't write introduction 1 to 2. You just write introduction, page 1. If your problem statement is on page 3, then it must be, for example, 1.2 problem statement, and then page 3 on the right-hand side. I'm sure you understand. Please take a look at the dissertations that are on the UNISA library website. It gives you exactly a layout, steal with the eyes. Remember, copy what others are doing in terms of formatting and style, and do that. You cannot go wrong if you do that. Do not copy the content. Just look at how it's done and follow the similar route. You have to have 3 chapters. Chapter 1, which is basically assignment 1, which has now been rectified. Chapter 2, which is your literature. And then chapter 3, which is your findings and recommendations. There are length restrictions. You will be penalized if you go over this. Remember, know the rules, follow the rules. If you want to be penalized, don't follow the rules. And then once your chapter 3 is done, on a totally new page, your reference list starts, and then there are certain attachments that you have to attach to the second assignment. So please make sure that you are aware of this. In terms of assessment 2, there is a specific due date. At this stage, the students for my modules, I will be a little bit flexible with the due date. It all depends on when you got your feedback. So please do engage me, but also monitor the communication that I send out from the module site. Professor Horn?
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Prof. Benson. I just want to, while you are on the due date, if you need extension, you cannot ask for extension after the due date. We do not have control over the systems. If you see that you cannot make the due date, you need to communicate with your lecturer well in advance in order to provide you official extension based on legitimate motivation. So please, the due dates on the examination, let's start at your last one. That's not negotiable at all. You cannot ask for extension. It's an exam. It's like your undergrad modules. When the examination date is set, if you miss that submission, you are not going to pass this year. That due date is not negotiable at all. The only due date, if you really have a crisis that is negotiable, is the due date for the second assessment. And you need to ask for extension beforehand. You cannot contact your lecturer a week after and say, I did not submit, please, can I have extension or submit now? No email submissions. We cannot upload on behalf of a student. Thanks, Prof. Benson.
Thanks, Prof. Horn. I see Professor van Graan has indicated the due date for FOR 5905 as the 24th of July. So that is for his. And I want to reiterate and underscore what Professor Horn has said. Folks, we live in a dynamic society. We live in a society where life happens. Please do your planning well in advance. If you know that your assignment has to be in on the 24th of July, work back and plan and prepare so that you will be able to upload before the due date has expired. Having said that, come the 23rd of July and you're in an accident or something happens that's out of your control, then do not wait until the 27th of July to contact your lecturer and say, yeah, but this happened. As soon as you are able to communicate with your lecturer. We understand that life happens. We are all parents. We are all spouses. We are all working, and we understand that laptops crash, laptops get stolen. Having said this, Professor Horn and I had a ritual when we were doing our PhDs. When you work and you finish working on that draft, you email it to yourself, because it doesn't matter if your system crashes or if your laptop is stolen. You have the last copy that you worked on. Having said that, there is also cloud technology, so have backups and have backups of backups, so that if something happens, you are not caught off guard, and you don't have to contact me on the 23rd of July and say, my laptop was stolen. Guys and ladies, I'm sorry, I'm not going to accept that as an excuse. You're a postgrad student, put processes in place for things that could happen out of the norm. It's totally different if on the 23rd of July, your employer tells you, pack, you're flying to Sudan. Totally different, totally different. Then you contact me and you tell me, listen, I've got a crisis. I'm going to be 2 days late. And then you ask permission. But all these things must come with evidence. So it mustn't be a question of, oh, I wanted to upload and there was load shedding or the power cables were stolen. No, that's not going to be considered by the university as extenuating circumstances. It sounds harsh, eh? but that is how it works in the academic space. There are due dates and there are reasons for due dates. Anything else? Any other questions? Anything else you want to ask? I'm not seeing any hands. If there are no further questions, just a final reminder, please double check when you upload that you upload the right document, the correct document, that you are not uploading Professor Horn's module submission for me or mine for Professor van Graan. So please do make sure that you upload the right document. Do not password protect your document, and do not set any editing protection on your document, because it makes it difficult to assess at the end of the day. Yes, Donald, I think you and I must go and have coffee so that you can ask me all of these questions.
I think you wanted to. I think you wanted to touch on the attachment issue of assignment
yes.
2 when you
Okay.
came to due dates, and we never got back to it. I think I missed that part.
Okay, let me double check quickly what the attachments are. Okay, so the attachments, Janita, now you must please help me. So the first attachment you must have is your marked assessment 1. In other words, that assessment that you got back with the markers comments, you attach that. Then you also have to attach an amended list of your list of questions. And if memory serves me correctly, the declaration of authenticity, although the system already has one built in, we like to have a hard copy of that for auditing purposes. Professor Horn and Professor van Graan, am I missing something?
No, Prof. Benson, that's the only attachments. The most important is the assessment 1.
Okay.
I have not included the for module 5908.
Yeah.
I have not been including the declaration as the student needs to declare on the system. And I also, so that's not a crisis. If you do include it, that's fine. I think the students must just be aware and also take note that all assessments are run through Turnitin. The system automatically does it. So by you cannot submit an assessment if you don't do the declaration of authenticity on the system. And by clicking that, you also acknowledge that you know that you should not plagiarize as the assessment is run through Turnitin automatically by the system. Thanks, Prof. Benson.
Okay, thank you. I see another hand. Timbani.
No, thank you, Prof. I just want to get clarity on this. You submit a marked assessment 1. That means where you have marked and write the recommendations. And then that's the
Timbani.
only one. Come on.
Timbani, sorry. I just want to understand you correctly. The marked assessment 1 is the one that you got back from me.
Yes.
That yes. Because I need to see in assessment 2, have you listened to the advice that I gave you? I have 23 students. I cannot remember what I'm telling you and what I'm telling Donald and what I'm telling Isaac out of my head. So I need to see, okay, what did I tell you to do? And did you do it? So yes, so just that you are on and I are on the same page there. So, my apologies.
Okay, Prof. You submit that one and the one that I've already, the one that is corrected.
No. If you are talking about the corrected assignment 1, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
No. And if I've misspoken, my apologies. You attach the marked version of assessment 1 you got back. Then if your list of questions, because the crux of your assignment is that list of questions, you had to then look at what did the markers say I must do with this list of questions. Are my list of questions good? Do I have to amend? And then just the list of questions on a separate page, you refine or you revisit, you give me a revised version of just the list of questions, not the entire assignment 1, just the list of questions. Is that clear? Okay, Timbani, you can lower your hand now. I've just drawn quickly my marking sheet for FOR5907. I want the following attachment, your revised list of questions, your approved topic aims and research questions, in other words, your marked assignment 1, and then your declaration of authenticity, please. So yeah, that's what I have on my side. But follow what your lecturer has given you. Pololosejo, yes?
Yes, Prof. I just need clarity. So with assignment 1, must we correct the recommendations that you made, but not submit those changes that we've made, but the initial marked assignment?
Okay, thank you for the question. Let me explain it as follows. Let's take Donald as an example. So let's say with Donald's title, I told him that he must refine the geographic location of his title, and he must refine the aim, and he must refine the research question. Now he looks at that. Remember, in assignment 2, your chapter 1 in assignment 2 is actually your assignment 1 that has been fixed. Are you with me?
Okay.
So what I'm going to see in assignment 2, I'm going to see your revised topic, your revised problem statement, your revised aim. So you are not going to give in a new assignment 1 for marking, but your revised or fixed version of assignment 1 becomes chapter 1 in assignment 2.
Oh, okay.
Makes sense?
Makes sense. Okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, you can lower your hand unless they, okay, awesome. Okay, any other questions? Anything else that you need to clarify? On smaller little Nyana things, please can we ask that you have somebody proofread your work before you submit, so that little technical errors and technical glitches are sorted out? Can we ask that you double check your references, make sure that whatever you use in the text is in the reference list? Because if you use something in the text and it's not in the reference list, it's not going to count marks, and vice versa. If you have something in the reference list, but it's not in the text, it's not going to count marks. In addition, I wanted to warn everybody that the use of Chat GPT or any other artificial intelligence technology to help you do your assignment will be picked up by Turnitin. Turnitin has the capability to identify AI generated text, and we are going to be merciless in terms of, or the university will be merciless in terms of instituting disciplinary prosecutions or steps against students who make themselves guilty of this. Obviously, with the audi alteram partem rule, the student will get an opportunity to speak to any charges that are made or allegations that are made. I'm sitting with one student, Prof. Horn, I note your hand. I'm sitting with one specific student now who used Chat GPT to answer their exam, and the university will definitely be taking disciplinary steps against the student. Yes, Prof. Horn?
Prof. Benson, thank you. I just wanted to, in closing, also ask the students, enjoy these modules. These modules are set there to help you to write your mini dissertation, which is your final step towards obtaining your master's. The referencing aspects that Prof. Benson spoke about and the proofreading of your work, these are not aspects we should be addressing at this level. You are on master's level. This is a reflection of you as a person when you are presenting your work, the detail of research you conducted. It's only going to get a little bit more difficult when you do your dissertation if you don't pay attention to detail in these modules. And then the most important is, besides enjoying these modules, the better you do in these modules, you can use one of these topics and you can expand on that. That is the aim. If you work more cleverer, you can actually expand your research and take that forward going into your mini dissertation without plagiarizing yourself, but you can expand on the knowledge you already obtained this year. So get your referencing right this year, get your punctuation right, get your attention to detail right, your methodology, get it under the knee of introducing your reader to the concepts and then taking your list of questions, which becomes your subheadings in assignment 2, and which or your headings and your subheadings on which you will be conducting your research. Thanks, Prof. Benson.
Thanks, Prof. Horn. Yeah, sometimes we get so fixated on the rules that we forget to stop and smell the roses. And I want to support what Prof. Horn said. I know I have a Telegram group for FOR5907. I want to encourage all my students to join the Telegram group so that we can chat with each other, we can support each other, we can help each other on that group. We are not there to do your work for you, but we are there to make the journey a little bit more enjoyable as well. So please feel free to join these groups and to engage with each other on these groups as well. If there are no other comments or questions, I'm going to close the session. We will be posting a recording, the link to the recording on the respective module sites, but we will also be posting a link to a survey in which we ask your feedback on this session this afternoon. And we really want to encourage you. You know what, going forward, you are going to be asking people to take part in interviews or take part in surveys. And it's not always convenient, but you know what, it helps the people that design these things to improve, to see where can we improve, where can we change, what must we focus on, what must we leave out. So please make the effort and take part in the survey that you will have find on your module site link. So if there are no further questions, no pressing issues, I'm going to stop the recording and bid everybody a good afternoon.